Hello, and welcome to the Argyle CFO Leadership Forum, FP&A Innovation for Growth. My name is Nick with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our panel moderator. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. For those seeking CPE credit today, you must answer at least 3 polling questions and remain on the session for its duration. Polls can be found under the Polls tab on the right-hand side of your console next to chat. Afterwards, if you are eligible to receive credit, you will receive an email. If you have any questions on credits, please email cpe@argyleforum.com. And just a reminder, our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. Throughout today's event, you will also have the opportunity to win one of several prizes. So be sure to check out the prizes and raffle rules tab of the interface to see how you can earn points. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat, and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce our moderator, Bruno Oliveira, Chief Financial Officer, Swissport. We're super excited to have Bruno and our panelists for a panel discussion titled Communication and Collaboration for FP&A Success. Welcome, Bruno. Over to you.
Thank you, Nick. It's very nice to have another opportunity to be in an Argyle event. I'm gonna ask for our other collaborators to present themselves and for us to start this very interesting discussion regarding communication and collaboration for FP&A success. And I'll give you the opportunity for uh, each one of them to start the introduction. And Madhuri, do you want to start? Maybe
Sure,
talking a little about you, about your experience, about your background.
sure. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is my, I think, fifth Argyle event that I'm either keynoting, moderating, or, uh, uh, you know, I've enjoyed all topics thus far. I have extensive about 15 years or over experience in manufacturing and healthcare in both technology and business operations, and also in finance, lately in finance. And I have been in the journey of digitization. So, a lot of what we're going to discuss today, I have deep rooted knowledge on in terms of how we've actually unearthed the tools and made a process, to make all these happen in terms of our road to AI, our road to Gen AI. All of these are enablers of that. So I have worked with global Fortune 20 companies, and lately I have founded a company on my own and offering consulting for road mapping as well as journeying towards Gen AI.
Yes, very interesting. Thank you for your presentation, for your introduction. And Teddy?
Hi, everyone. My name's Teddy Collins. I'm the VP of Corporate Finance at SeatGeek. We're a ticket marketplace in the US and UK. And I think the parts of the talk I'm most excited to is kind of talk about some of examples of SeatGeek's journey from a 100-person startup back when I joined 8-9 years ago to approaching 1,000 folks now, and just some of the best practices and tools that we're able to implement to kind of keep communication flowing between the groups and kind of create those scalable processes that helps finance be a value add, but also do so in a pretty lean and efficient way.
Yes, very, very, very interesting. It's nice that I believe that we have So diverse experience here, and we're gonna have a very good outcome in the end, right? Erica, can you present yourself, please?
Yes, sorry, I was muted. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Hey, I'm Erica. I am an empathetic people leader that just happens to love finance. And so I've been in finance for about 22 years. I have a BS in finance with an MBA in finance. Most recently, I was former FP&A, head of FP&A for specialized risks and commercial risks at TransUnion. Listen, from public companies to private companies, from mid-sized to large, from US based to internationally based, from divestitures to minority investments. I've seen a lot. I've had the opportunity to solve in many different places and work across many different platforms, as well as work across many different functions to collaborate. And so I definitely understand the importance of communication, the importance of collaboration. Super excited to hear some of those practices that have really worked and allowed me to be very successful in the past.
Sure, sure. I think your experience is amazing because you live it to very too much different environments regarding these different kinds of company that you've been, right? So
Yes.
it we are eager to hear thoughts. So Ross, can you present yourself, please?
Hi, Ross Sanderson. I'm currently the Vice President of FP&A at Canary Medical. We're a small venture-backed Series C startup, kind of working through a smart medical implant. So we have the world's first smart medical knee. And so we're a med device as well as a software company, so kind of hybrid of the two. But the majority of my career has been spent in healthcare technology, life science organizations. But going from working in large publicly traded institutions like a McKesson, but over the last 8 years, I've been primarily focused over on the venture side, so the Series B to C to D range, as well as private equity sponsor backed organizations. So I've kind of seen the gambit of how do you effectively manage in organizations large and small. So excited to kind of share some of those insights that I've had over the last bit of my career, and happy to help and answer any questions too.
Yes, well, thank you for all of your presentation, guys. I just want to introduce a little bit the theme that the subject that we are talking about right now, and when you think about communication, collaboration, and we put FP&A in the middle of it, we have a very large set of shareholders to talk because FP&A do this kind of all directions communication, right? We talk with the board, with investors above. We talk with our peers in a more horizontal pathway, right? With operations, with logistics, with commercial, with all the areas, and also we need to keep influencing and bringing our teams from below to above for having a strong support to give the right direction to what needs to be done. So this is kind of 360 communication, right? And is very dynamic. And honestly, I'm now completing 1 month of CFO in Swissport, Mexico, but I worked 15 years in FP&A. I know exactly what we are talking and exactly what about we are talking here, and it's very hard to manage all this multi-directional communication because we need to somehow filter and change the narrative and change the language depending on the audience, right? So I'm gonna ask Erica regarding, for example, in your opinion, what are the key challenges when we talk about this cross functional communication? I mean, this diversity of talking with maybe in the morning with the board, in the afternoon with the team, and the end of the day with the peers to set some negotiation. So you that had all these experience in so diverse companies, what can you tell us about it?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Bruno. I think, the first thing is understanding your audience, right? Who am I speaking to? Am I speaking to the board? Am I speaking to colleagues? Am I speaking to my business president? Once you understand your audience, I think it's important to understand and really go back to the objectives. What is it from the very top of the company we're trying to solve? What is the objective? What is the priority? And it's reiterating that before you even get started. Reiterating why we're here, reiterating what we're here to solve for, and then from there
Exactly.
communicating based on the function, based on the audience, what it is that you need to contribute to that end goal. How is it that they meet? Understanding that everyone's priorities will be different. The board's priorities are going to be very different from someone in operations.
Sure.
Operations is going to be very different from someone in sales. And so understanding your audience and understanding what their priorities are and how they can contribute to making sure that we're on the same path, that we're marching toward the same goal and same objective is going to be very critical, and that's going to be where you start. And so what that means, Bruno, is sometimes you just got to meet people where they are. Meeting people where they are means understanding how much do they understand about that objective, understand how much do they understand about what we're trying to achieve as a company, and then again understand about what role they play in that contribution that we need them to make, and then having that really, I would say, articulate conversation that's measurable, that's actionable in terms of what it is that you need for them to do, so that again you're marching toward one goal, and you're all on the same page. It will be challenging. There's no such thing as an easy conversation when you're talking money, and so sometimes you just got to pause in the middle of delivering that message to make sure that you're able to answer questions and again get everybody on board to march in the same direction. But understanding the audience is first and foremost most critical.
Sure, sure. And depending on the company, on the moment that this company is, this goal, this common goal that is kind of the first the first priority that needs to be in the head of everyone can change dynamically very fast, right? I believe that Ross can help us a little bit with this because once
Yeah.
he works in a VP backed company that also pursue a lot of these maybe in a startup or some in more dynamic environment. This is very, you need to be very connected with with what is this goal, right?
Yeah, and I think that's especially in a small organization, but I think it also large too. But it's more. I find what one of FP&A and finance's key jobs is just having a seat at the table and kind of being able to understand the full picture is one of the benefits of being in these positions, right?
Yes.
Because you're one of those people that can help organizations connect the dots. And one of the things that I see, especially when you're working with, company goals, right? There's always company objectives. Like this is A, B, and C. This is where we're working towards. But obviously, as you start filtering down into the organization, each of those organizations do have their own internal goals and objectives, right? That in theory should all kind of consolidate up to the top. But what can happen as the years go on is that people lose sight of, okay, we're part of this broader organization that's working in these objectives, and the focus becomes solely on what do I have to do to deliver my objectives at all cost, right? And what FP&A's job really has to be able to do is, I think, Bruno, what you're talking about is that as objectives and as priorities change, right? And in a startup world, they can change like every day. It's ensuring that people's goals and objectives and what they're marching towards are contemporary, right? We're not
Yes.
just working towards, well, I had a budget of X at the beginning of the year and had a head count of Y. Well, one of the things I always say is like a budget is a stake in the ground, right? It's something that we use to kind of work towards an end objective for a period, right? It's how we hold ourselves accountable to a board or investors. But how we get there obviously needs to change throughout the year. And so helping organizations and departments understand how they fit in the broader picture is one of those things that FP&A has to be able to do and communicate. And those can be hard decisions, right? Because it ends up being kind of a portfolio type approach to managing the business that you might have to push and pull from other departments to ensure that you're going to meet an overall objective. And it can be hard for an FP&A person because a lot of times you have more information than others, right? And how you share and distribute that information can be a little bit tricky.
Yes, and how do you filter these? Not just regarding the audience, but when we tell that FP&A has this central role of distributing and receiving information all the time, we need to somehow be very different persons depending on the direction that this information and that this communication goes or comes. And but this point, that is the core of it, is the title of our panel discussion here, of communication and collaboration is very important. So, Teddy, when we talk about collaboration for FP&A success, and what do you see that is the main challenge regarding on the role of FP&A collaborating in this multi-directional communication? Because it's not easy, right, to satisfy somehow the board desires and the vision that we need to make it real, and at the same time be supportive to all areas that wants to be connected with the business, right?
Yeah, I'd say one of the main challenges that I'm sure a lot of people in this room and on the call have experienced is, FP&A's mandates covers a very large surface area. So you have a lot of stakeholders that want to see different level of finance fluency and knowledge. We've got different versions and capital plans and budgeting and reporting, and people want data because you have access to a lot of different systems. So it's kind of, what can you do before you get to the point where it's time to communicate and collaborate? So it's, can you provide self-serve tools? Can you help drive source of truth data and systems and reports that people have access to, so that you are freed up with your limited resources from a headcount perspective to go and have those conversations, because the variance packs and the data packs and the analytical information is just available when actual is posted to your ERP. So you're not there burning the midnight oil just to get the data pack ready for the conversation.
Yes, sure, sure. And I believe that part of the solution for building the bridges that we need to have between areas to ensure this effective collaboration depends on technology too, right? Depend on using. I'm not saying that is not is any rocket science technology, but we need to have a very good framework on it. So, Madhuri, what do you think that maybe are the best practices to ensure that this communication is effective and that we are going in the right pathway regarding communication and collaboration?
I think she was having a couple of technical difficulties, Bruno. Um,
Okay. And
I,
do you hear us,
I can
Madhuri?
Ross, you know.
I can touch on that if you want, Bruno.
Okay. I would like to. Thank you, Ross.
Sure. Yeah. So, one of the things that I found, especially I mean, I did this, it goes to big and small organizations, is that, G&A is, and every person that works in G&A, it's always an underfunded function. And so you're always looking to find ways of leveraging the people and the resources that you do have. Right. And so, I think that technology is one of those things that does help you leverage the people and resources that that you have. And one of the things that I've always talked about when I'm pitching, either investing in a new technology, enhancing a new technology, is what are the things that it's going to enable us to do. And one of the things with FP&A is that financial reporting is always going to be a component of the job, right? And I think Teddy was touching on this a little bit earlier, but in my mind, like, financial reporting as it can possibly be. If you're spending the majority of your time building reports and emailing around P&Ls and things, you're missing the opportunity to be proactive in how you support your business partners. And so the way that I think that, like, technology, can help is that it can help you really automate some of those processes and approaches to where you're not spending the time, building P&Ls and data packs for folks. You have technology that does that for you and can be sent out at the push of a button. And and a lot of times, like an FP&A department, it's a luxury item, right? For smaller companies, is that you can find ways of using existing technology to help your team, right? So I was in a pretty I was in a pretty acquisitive PE-backed organization, and implementing a tool can take some time, and so we had to do something. And so we found a way of automating our reporting using like a Google Sheet, like a modified Google Sheets database, so that we were able to update one file and then send out 99 location files within 5 seconds. And so I think the way that, like, I always think is like, hey, there's always nice to haves, right, that are going to improve your life. But then you also have to look at, like, what are the ways that I can use my existing tech stack to just things that are rote tasks that really are kind of looking, for FP&A, everything should be looking forward, right? So things that are like always a looking back. How do we automate those things that are going to help us kind of be that business partner to help us start providing insights to our business partners? And technology is one of those key things that can help you free up the time to start being that, like, trusted advisor.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
If I
I
could just,
honestly, you go on, Erica. Sorry.
sorry to interrupt you, Bruno. I was going to say, if I could just piggyback off what Ross just said, completely 100% agree. The use of technology in the finance department is extremely critical, especially being that we should be thinking about our roles as strategic business partners. And the more time we spend on that spreadsheet, analyzing it, pulling it together, consolidating it, the less time we really have on having the meaningful conversations about where we're going, what do we need to do, what pipeline opportunities do we need to plan for. And so it's extremely important that we utilize that technology so that we can look forward and have those meaningful conversations with our partners. 100% agree.
No, sure.
Yeah, the one thing I
Honestly,
always say, real quick, and then this is one thing I'm very passionate about, but is that I think it's also how you view your finance department, right? And I always view finance and FP&A as a service function, right? So you're there to support your business partners. A lot of times, finance can we can get on a little power trip, right? Because we're in all the meetings, we have all the information. But I think in the end, your role is a pure service function, right? So, like, what can you do to aid in your business partners meeting their goals and objectives?
sure. Amazing. Honestly, in my experience, I don't know if you share the same opinion. I really don't believe that there is one single magic tool of technologically saying that we're gonna solve the communication, the automatization, or anything like in this direction. I worked in companies that were very mature regarding technology tools. I work in some companies that we were just working with emails and some not that structured models for example, reporting the results. And I really believe that where is the great opportunity is in the communication, is how we influence the other areas, how we um, understand what is the vision of the business leaders, and ensure that this vision um, is being spread on horizontally and vertically, uh, as much as is possible. So, in your opinion, Teddy, how do you see that is maybe the best way to communicate complex financial data to the person that are not financial professionals? For example, we have here in Swissport very interesting conversations between operations and and finance. And I believe that in a lot of companies, mainly the manufacturing service companies, we have the same challenge, right? To make them understand the financial side, and for us too to understand and to learn what is the complexity of operations to not for us to not create wrong assumptions or to have a wrong view of the business. So how do you see this challenge of communicating with non-financial peers?
Yeah, exactly. 'Cause the situation can be complex because people can see, a number in a system, but then there could be allocations, or as you move to gap numbers. So I think what we've really tried to do is, can you distill, first of all, just as a table stakes, distill all the concepts into kind of one single number, and is that number green or red, like good or bad, compared to the budget or what you're trying to control against. So that could be helping distill away some of the complications with timing of a cash payment versus how it's going to be recognized on the books, or we have to accrue for something so we haven't gotten an invoice, or the likelihood of a certain thing happen and how gap rules are going to inform that. So just kind of starting with that one number to frame the conversation. Then, kind of in more in-person conversations, you maybe go into that medium detail, leverage more visual um, guides, either like a flow chart or a workflow, and less about the dozens of lines in a spreadsheet and having them all balance out. And then if needed, as people who some people in the org are more interested to kind of double click, having that high level of detail in the appendix if they do want to go down the rabbit's nest and be a honorary accountant or finance person for the day or the quarter.
Yes, sure, sure. I really believe that FP&A specifically, not saying about finance in general, but FP&A is a great problem solver in the company, because we have the kind of the unique view uh, of seeing the problems of the company and measuring what is the impact of keep having this problem, right? And to support the leadership to have the right direction on where to put energy and where to maybe wait 1, 2, or 3 more months, for example. So, Madhuri, what is your experience um, when we talk about this communication challenge to other areas, but also as you have all these technology background, what can you say us about some specific tools, some maybe solutions that you have used in companies that you've been, and how was the best outcome, for example?
Sure. So one of the biggest barriers to for in business areas or business organizations to uh, get aligned with FP&A is in the jargon and in getting that objective, um, understood. So, just as an example, FP&A talks a lot about EBITDA, right? So, a lot of people in the business operations realm may or may not understand how they are influencing EBITDA. When top line growth or cost containment, or how are you influencing it, and what are your drivers that you're bringing to the team? And I think getting that across the board will be very useful, as well as in terms of tools. What I would say is go back to basics. You have the tool is great, but having the process behind the tool is what we need. And what I mean by that is you could have a tool to report on, you could have a tool to consolidate your data, but if you don't have a process by which you're going to, have operational data standardized and perhaps unified, standardized, transformed in the way that you want to report it, you're not going to have reporting that of course. So, and that's going to not, have the outcome that you need from an FP&A perspective. Because you want to drive actionable insights to your reporting, right? And that's what these tools should help you. And if you don't have that, because your data is not of quality and you don't have integrity in your data, I it goes back to processes where you need the governance. You need to work with resources from both the finance as well as the business operations to make sure that the data is, and that commitment is needed from a leadership perspective as well as from the boots on. And I feel that once that is in place, the tools, a lot of tools in the marketplace are fungible. And then I think that one probably has a better cost, price tag than the other. One probably fits your tech stack better than the other, but they all do very similar things. I think it all boils down to how your processes are tailored and how you would how you can unify the processes to make sure that the data you have in the in your in your database is clean enough to report out.
Hey, Bruno.
Your contribution uh, too, and it's okay. Do you hear me?
Yep.
Yep. Hey, Bruno. There's a couple of questions in the chat. Can we answer one of those?
Yes, just let me take a look.
I think it was on the topic that we were just on in terms of like how can we simplify concepts to non-finance stakeholders. Um, I'm happy
Yes,
to take
sure.
it.
Yes, you can take it. You can take.
Hi. So to be very successful in talking to departments that don't necessarily have all the finance acumen that we have is starting with the basics. Talk about budget, explain what budget is, talk about variance to prior year, variance to plan, or variance to budget. Talk about variance to the forecast that we just did. Also, the frequency of a conversation is important. If you're meeting monthly with non-finance stakeholders and you're going through, hey, this was our plan for the year. Here's how we're tracking to it so far. Here's how we've done in 2 months out of the 12. Here's how we've done in 6 months out of the 12. And showing that variance, what you'll find is that they will eventually start to pick up, I had a budget number and I'm either on or off my budget. And it becomes a very simplistic conversation about the numbers and about what we signed up for and how we're tracking toward that number. The other important thing about non-finance stakeholders is just making sure that they understand the bigger picture. Your number, your budget makes up 10% of the total. So we can't afford for you to be off plan. So what are some of the discretionary levers that we can pull to get us back on plan? And you start having an intelligent conversation about how you can solve, right? And again, you're talking numbers, you're talking simplistic, intelligent, solving opportunities. And that's how you really go about having those conversations with non-finance stakeholders. You may take that up a level depending upon if you're talking to a VP, a senior director, or a regular associate. I mean, like a manager or an analyst. It may be a different level of conversation. But I think it's important to understand where your audience is when you're having that conversation so that, you're not coming in with, the normal finance jargon that's way over their head. You want to make sure it's very simplistic so that they understand. And sometimes those basics of just variance to plan, variance to prior year, variance to forecast is a great place to start. and then having an intellectual conversation about how you either get back on plan or how you stay on plan is where I would say, makes those conversations much more digestible for someone who's not in finance.
Sure, sure. I really believe that we need to bring everyone to the planning process, and then to the follow-ups, and then to 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 have the control and to find opportunities and to understand the variations. So this process, the numbers, the great errors, in my opinion, that some companies do is to make the financial numbers a number of finance. The
Yeah.
numbers are not for finance. The numbers are built with everyone participation, right, Ross?
Yeah, I mean that I used to have three pillars of FP&A. Over the years, I've lost one of them, so now I'm a two-legged stool. But um, those two pillars are transparency and accountability, right? And it's not just how you manage your team, but it's also like how you manage your organization and your relationships with your business partners. And Bruno, I think what you're mentioning there is like the key to establishing and building those good business relationships with business partners is transparency, right? Like
Exactly.
partnering with them to come up with the budget. What I was thinking about when you were talking, Erica, is like the way I always communicate and talk with my teams are, I try to think about organizations like how do we translate this to operational metrics that they're used to, right? Not just a P&L. Those operational metrics will apply and translate to a P&L over time, right? But it's things and North Stars and items that they can like tangibly understand, as well as, and I think Teddy, what you were mentioning too, is like things that they can analyze and track in real time, that they're not just waiting for the financial books to close, right? In small organizations, closing the books time. And so if you're waiting to close the books, then you're already behind. And so I think that is key. But building those budgets and focusing on the things that can be understood as well as measurable is important, because I think that provides the transparency. But then what it also does is it transfers accountability of the budget to your business partners, right? And so it's not just the finance budget, Bruno. That's what I always say. Like, this is not my budget. I'm a translator here, right? I'm translating
Yes.
your operational
Yes.
results into a measurable P&L, right? And a measurable cash flow statement. But you are on the hook for being able to deliver this. So let's focus on the things that, we know what can we control, right? Okay, your benefits are out of whack because like finance missed, our per head benefit estimate. Well, like we're gonna have to solve for that as a company, but what can you do to solve for the things that are the major contributors to your budget? And so I think that those are the keys. And then having a way of communicating and having those check-ins, whatever basis is needed to be able to make actionable changes is the key.
No, exactly, exactly. I really like the driver-based budget technique, and as long as I think that the key of this translation that you're saying, Russ, um, is 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 understanding how each operational driver, or how each business driver affects the results, right? Some are more some are more relevant, others are not that relevant but are very strategic regarding market positioning, regarding a specific view of the business. And this is is the intersection that unites, for example, operations with finance, to understand, for example, the volume of the business, the quality of, for example, of the NPS, what is the perception of the client. So when we start connecting the variations of the variations of the results, I can tell by my experience, almost all the time, 99% of the time, the things talks between each other, right? And Teddy, what do you see, for example, what is the main challenge when we're talking on making the whole company having the same view? Because um, this is this is very hard to achieve, right? How FP&A with all our collaborate between all the areas, how can we influence for that same vision, for that same goal that we talked in the beginning of the conversation, to be spread and to be gathered by other areas amongst the company.
Yes, it's about kind of both finding the, you know, taking kind of guidance, from the executive team on, what are the, KPIs, what's the mission, what's the vision, what's the budget in the more near term. I think there's a lot of ways to help drive kind of accountability on what that budget number, should be. And once you do have those North Star metrics, really, I think it's up to FP&A to really drive that information, make it transparent, make it readily available, really timely. Whether it be, waiting for month end close, like what can you do from a flash perspective? What can you do to estimate those numbers before they're kind of officially ready? And I think a combination of, yes, having that available, and then also, you know, really understanding of what are we measuring against. I think one thing that's, internally at SeatGeek that's been really great is, finance has definitely inserted itself as a problem solver, as an advocate for the overall business as well as the various departments. And when we want to, really limit the use of the phrase, my budget or my P&L, where it's like, okay, we achieved savings here or we outperformed here. Where can we reallocate those funds to have the highest ROI within the business, because we're all driving towards the same goal. So kind of having those more shared goals from a um, overall perspective, whether it be just overall KPIs or individual compensation plans, has been really helpful in us driving in the same direction.
Sure, sure. I really believe that um, to make people share the same view, we need to share the construction. We need to build it together. As we said some moments ago, this thing of my budget, of finance numbers, always go to the wrong way, right? So, Madhuri, what do you see that is important um, to keep enhancing this collaborative environment? I mean, what is important for us to have in this dynamic of the communication, for people do not disengage, for people to keep motivated on contributing?
Yes. So just like you mentioned, my budget, your budget, I don't think the other thing people need to understand is people don't need to rally on the data saying it's my data, your data. That's where a lot of companies are, is where the reporting that business operational biz ops may be seeing may be totally different. The metrics or the numbers may be different from what you're seeing at your end when all the numbers flow into finance and they're consolidated in finance. And why that's happening is there's data silos and there's incorrect data categorization as they consolidate. So that goes back to how are you going to break down the data silo? How are you going to make a standardized reporting so everybody sees one source of truth? And marketing and sales and supply chain is not seeing a report that's different from what finance is seeing. They're all seeing one source of truth, so that the actions are taken from that one source of truth to fix whatever is, whatever variance is being observed. So there's a standard use of data visualization, and everyone knows how to use those reports. It's one thing to have reports, it's the other thing that people don't know how to read it, right? That's another thing. Making sure that people know they exist and what the reports actually mean, and for them to understand when those reports are ready to be even consumed. Because finance always follows a calendar. If you have a monthly close and all your numbers or your reports are available on, you know, uh, T plus 10 days or whatever your calendar says. So making sure everybody understands, reinforcing the training, reinforce the awareness and know-how around those reports, making sure that they're available for everyone to see. So that makes sure that we are reporting
and you're all seeing one data as opposed to siloed data and making decisions in silos, which is the worst thing for a company to do because you could this actually solving a problem that is totally different from what finance is seeing from a consolidated perspective. So that's another big key thing is everyone should be aligned with the with looking at the variance the way it should be looked at. Um, Supply chain should not be seeing a variance that's different from what finance is perceiving. And that's one of the key things from a collaborative standpoint, from a tech standpoint, is that the data needs to be standardized. It needs to be harmonized, understood, and reported in a very standardized manner.
Yes, sure, sure. Thank you, Madhuri, for your contribution. Nick, back to you. Now we can proceed. If the audience have some questions or anything to ask us.
Uh, sure. Yeah, I think we covered some of the questions um, already. Let me see what we have here. Uh, if you didn't cover this already, how can FP&A teams leverage data analytics to uncover new insights and drive better decision making?
Yes, this connects a lot with what Madhuri was saying, that the importance of making financial and non-financial teams to understand the financial data. And this is a very big challenge because not all financial data can be seen for everyone, but at the same time, it's important for them to be involved. So maybe what in companies that I was is the balance scorecard um, technique. So the management will gonna define what is more important, what is less important, what is the weight of each thing, and this is gonna drive the energy that put into the drivers that grows the business. So I don't know, Erica, do you want to add something on this about this about how could we help other areas to nation, but even though we know that we cannot share everything, right?
Yes, I think it's really important to just understand the type of company you're in, right? If you're in a public company that actually has analyst calls, you will not be able to see everything. It's a fact, right? We can't share all types of data for public companies, and so you will be limited in terms of the financials or the performance that you're able to see and how it projects outward. It protects you, the company, from potential impacts of insider trading, as well as just making sure that
Sure.
people are not spreading information about if you're hitting or not hitting your numbers. It's the nature of a public company. Big companies, private companies, you have a little bit more flexibility in sharing information, and how much you share. Dashboards may be more applicable in some of those private companies. A larger audience may be more applicable in some of those private companies, but in public companies, typically you're only going to be able to share that information with a certain hierarchy of leaders and above. And what you share below that is going to be very, what I would say, very high level information. It's not going to come with a lot of additional details outside of variances. But the best way to share it is to just understand your audience and understand what you're able to share, if you're public or private, and how much of that information can be shared based on those insider trading rules.
Sure, sure. I'm gonna wrap up a little bit about we talked here, and in summary, we need to understand which language works better on which audience, and mainly try to filter and try to drive better what is the best way to communicate with each direction that we are communicating, and also what is the best strategy to working together to collaborate on each level of the business. So here we talked about a little about it, and it was really, really nice to have you all here. And Nick is with you. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you all for such an insightful panel discussion. And I want to thank everyone else for joining us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. For those of you who earned points throughout today's event, an Argyle team member will be following up with the winners in the next couple of weeks. This officially concludes the Argyle CFO Leadership Forum, FP&A Innovation for Growth. Thank you again for joining us today and engaging in our content. We look forward to seeing you at our next Argyle Digital Finance event soon, which will be our SMB Finance Leadership Forum, Future Trends for SMB Finance, on September 12th, 2024. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.